Yo, what up? Welcome to another video part of the Lazy Content Train. Today, I'll be talking all about the P2W generals of World Conquer 4. The gold generals, the purple generals, and even little old Arnhem. At the end, I'll compare each general of their respective type together to see where they all stack. Example, Manstein, Tolby, Abrams, etc. I'll also be ignoring the cost to buy or upgrade these generals outside of Tolby and Yo-Yo and Spatz and Eichelberger. With that all the way, let's start off with the gold quintuple. Start with Manstein, the first of the OG IPs, and by far a very powerful tank general. With a skill set identical to Guderian, ignoring the bio, he's basically a pay-to-win version of him with extra speed. That bio of his, which is plus 18 attack and plus 35% crit damage for documentary purposes, definitely makes him one of the best with some of the highest damage achievable for a tank. A hyper offensive set running Inspiration and Inferior Victory is the way to go for him, in my opinion, though some honorable mentions are Crossfire and Rumor if you want a little bit more variety. Next we have Zhukov. With incredible survivability along with incredible damage, Zhukov is a very reliable artillery general to have on any team. His bio gives plus 18 attack and 20% HP, which is very useful for any artillery unit, especially on the Alpha 1. For skills, there's a lot you can run. Hyper offensive, Inspiration, Inferior Victory, Fighting Spirit, Crossfire, Rumor, Dominance maybe. A lot of different options, very customizable, which I enjoy. Eisenhower, the final DOG, and with the most unique of the bios, giving Naval he's on an extra 1 tile to range along with 18 attack. A very useful trait to have at times, especially avoiding damaging through the 3 range. A lot of synergy with Rishu as well. Possible skills include a hyper-offensive Inspiration, Inferior Victory, Early Warning, Cover even, Air Force Leader if you want a little bit more hybrid, Rumor, or Wolfpack. Marshall. He's one of the newer gold IAPs along with Katukov, with plus 18 attack and 12 defense via the bio, becoming a tankier infantry general in any inf EF. He's amazing on any, actually, making him very versatile and strong, and with extra defense, it's more than likely every hit he does will heal him thanks to his Guerrilla Master. His infantry group charge is also strong, and the only inf general with the skill. It helps him be a team player, but he also doesn't rely on it like some other generals we'll discuss later. His organization skill is decent, but definitely the weakest skill set in my opinion, just because he heals naturally through attacking. You should definitely run Raider and Infantry Leader. I don't see another option that can't be done really. Katukov, the cheapest of the gold generals with the totally real 80% discount for real. He's the most unique of all the golden ones. He's a very defensive general starting out with healing under HP for both infantry and tank. You can run plenty of defensive skills to be useful on any tank or on medic, or run a more aggressive tank set and have him stick on tanks, but I believe playing into his hybrid ability is best, so defensive in my opinion. I'd run Rumor and Fighting Spirit, Guerrilla Fighting, Cover, or Fortifications. Abrams. He's a fine tank general, but I feel he suffers from the 5 skill slot issue that some other pay-to-win generals have. His set is pretty strong for the most part, with plus 10% damage per tile moved, capping at 50%, and a 100% chance to lower the morale of 2 nearby units when he kills, along with the required Armored Assault and Panzer Leader that all offensive tank generals should have. Where he falls flat is his Blitzkrieg, a rather defensive skill for such an offensive general. At least with the Rumor skill, he can cripple a few units around him before he's done, but Blitzkrieg really betrays his damage output. Inspiring or Inferior Victory would have been way more beneficial for him. I'm afraid that lacking either one hampers his damage, along with Inspiring's morale protection. And let's not forget that he has to move to get the damage bonus. There are plenty of moments where you need to have the tank generals attack immediately, causing his damage to be rather poor. Arnhem, the specialist of boys, the not like other girls of these IAPs, because he's blue. It feels unfair to rank him against the other IAP tankers later on, but it'd be a disservice to forget this, frankly forgettable general. But let's see if there's any pros that this guy can offer. For starters, he can run Rumor and be a decently strong Rumor spreader, though Armored Assault is the preferred damage skill if you have to pick between it or the leader skill. Or you can run an Armored Assault and have a mini Rommel, or Fortifications for extra survivability. But really, the only set I think you can run on him is Rumor, because if you want to run damage, there are plenty of other superior options out there. But hey, Armored Assault Arnhem does more damage in the deserts than an Abram that hasn't moved yet, so there's that. Or just run an Eco Skill on him. You buy the beginner pass for the rewards. Arnhem is just a special treat. Next we have Cherniakovskia. I'm calling him Cherry because I know I'm probably butchering this name, so apologies for that. I'm going to put it out there. I really like Cherry. Not enough to buy him, maybe in the future, but certainly a general I find dangerously fun. We have strong offensive skills, along with the blasting impact dealing 20% of the damage caused to all nearby units from the target if you killed, which also damages cities. I really enjoy this perk as it can help a snowball effect with him or other generals, or just help safely chip away at a dangerous unit. He's not the best damage dealer, but his damage and chips can certainly stack up. He's just very fun overall, though I will critique the appearance of Blitzkrieg, but it doesn't take away too much as we have Inspiring. Osborne. They spelled his name wrong. Ah! Osborne is a very supportive tank general. His first skill, Leader, gives him plus 30% damage to all land units, and gives himself and nearby allies in the range of 3 tiles plus 15% damage when he takes a city. Along with that, he does an extra 25% damage to units below half HP and allows him to ignore dodge, smokescreen, and phantom status. Very nice to have in these 4-star events and also in the 1960 CC. His final unique perk is probably the strongest in a conquest, being Supply Organization, which increases all economic output by 20% so long as he's in his own territory. He's especially vulnerable to rumor. His primary job is trying to take cities to buff allies Tolbukin. As stated earlier, the costs of Tolbi and Yuryo, and by proxy Spatz and Eichelberger, are rather high in the metal department as opposed to any of the other purples. The obvious reason is because they're a pack of 2, so in order to artificially inflate the price, ET lowered the preset skill greatly to either force you to wait longer to upgrade, or cough up enough money to buy a metal pack. Or if you have like 10k metal saved up and you don't give a shit. I want to bring this fact up for any light pay-to-win players, and because the cost of these 2 in the American bundle will affect their placement a bit. These guys are going to have to be really good to warrant such a big price tag. Onto the actual analysis. Tolbukin is a pretty strong tanker thanks to its Inspiring and Planes. Terrain is an additive perk that does not affect the base damage number, and it also triggers on cities, funnily enough, just for documentary purposes. That joint attack is very powerful. Much like Marshall, Tolbukin works very well solo or with someone with him, making him a very worthwhile purchase. And finally, Vitamin. The last of the tanker IPs, and we finish off with the first purple, Out Poetic. Vitamin was never really good. His ignored defense was a poor addition when he first came out, as against the highest defense at the time, a Titan tank yielded roughly 50 damage, making him not really worth it. Rumor was crazy back then, and Vitamin had none, making the idea of purchasing him even less ideal. Then, Inspiring came out, and that was a massive hit in any viability he might have had. The damage gap suddenly put him at the bottom end, with generals like Guderian, Rommel, and later on Menstein gaining bios to make them even stronger. And then Inferior Victory was added, and Vitamin was mauling as he became one of the biggest IAP victims of power creep. Nowadays, he sits collecting dust, but there is a chance to make a small comeback in the form of the level 12 King Tiger. I don't have mine with myself, so I can't confirm what I'm about to say, but I have a feeling that his damage will be quite powerful on that unit because it has the, with more defense, you get more damage, and he ignores defense, so you know, that's pretty nice. But outside of this small niche, Vitamin remains a very mediocre tank general. Onto the artillery. Up first we have Eichelberger for the purples. Coming up with Spatz, Eichelberger is a very expensive, and worse, very weak artillery general. He has no damaging skills outside of the generic accuracy and artillery leader, making him very reliant on his joint attack with artillery, unlike Tolbukin or Marshall. Repairs is also a very mid-skill, as the metal to buff it only does it by 30%, and Amphibious is a very niche, almost useless perk to have. 5-star in artillery as well, not horrible, but with almost every other option having 6, he'll be lucky if he outdamages anyone. Now only if I didn't do this alphabetically, so this could be a nice segue into Williams. Kluge. Kluge is a very hard-hitting general, and though his damage might not be as impressive as Zhukov's, he's still quite a terrifying general to fight against. Ignore defense in of itself is not a bad skill, quite the opposite. It is a strong skill, especially on artillery where they have a higher base damage as compared to tanks. Kluge is a city cracker, the fortress buster, the Gustav simp. Tanky, decently fast, and hits the hardest of any purple arty candidate. Sokolovsky. Sokolovsky fans universally wept a tear when they found out Topol didn't use arty stars when attacking. Sokolovsky is a very weird general. He's not made to kill, quite the opposite, thanks to his strategic attack and artillery defense perk. He's made to sit there, smack people, make them more vulnerable, and eat every shot. The weirdness comes with his nuke perk, giving all nukes launched by him a devastating power, surpassing that of even the air metal. He's great on Topol, until you need to launch a normal air attack, and then they'll do pitiful damage and not even spread the strategic attack. If you use him on Topol, only 2 perks are used. On artillery, 4, unless you station him on a missile or airport and have access to nukes, which isn't always the case. He's a strange case, but no one can argue he isn't unique. One must imagine a Sokolovsky with Air Force leader. Voronov, in my opinion, one of the most forgettable of the artillery generals, as I completely forgot his existence before making this video. His perk increases crit damage by 25% when on elite forces, and gives them a strong healing ability. I may be incorrect, but from what I can deduce, Voronov gets healed for any attack he does by 3% of the damage times the level of an elite force. So for an example, say you do 400 damage on a level 5 priest, you heal 50% of that, which is 60 HP. That is quite a bit in comparison to plunder ribbons, and you don't even need to kill. Pair this with hold fast, and he certainly can become quite annoying to kill, which is good for you. However, this healing is reliant on damage, and Voronov's damage is rather pitiful without any ignore defense, inspiration, inferior victory, or even a terrain if we're desperate. All he has is this hard to kill quirk, and generals like Sokolovsky can do this better, or generals like Kluge can do it with far superior damage. Oh, and a reliance on EF for a skill to work is also an issue. I'll explain more later when we come to the most egregious general with this issue. Williams, the most unique of the artillery general, and one who had the most promise, only for him to be fucked over without leader. Now, I know the lack of leader kills him a lot, but hear me out when I say this. This guy is really funny to use, and can be very useful. I don't know about you, but there are a lot of times where I need to have someone to be able to attack again, but I don't have a tanker to do it with. Williams, especially on Priest, his ideal EF, can perform this role wonderfully. Break low HP cities, possibly clear out a bit of the horde, along with other things. It's a niche use, and one that, if you don't subscribe to, I totally get it. Williams is dog water outside of this role. I call him Chatillions for a reason. But in the right circumstances, he can perform a role that no one else can do if I'm lacking armor. Fun, but not very practical. And finally, Yo-Yo-Menko, the discount Kluge, which means this guy isn't bad. He's what I'd call above average, better than most free-to-play arty, but not the cream of the crop. A very inoffensive general, so he doesn't really stand out too much compared to his pay-to-win brothers. You get Yo-Yo-Menko because you want Tolby. Tolby is the cake, Yo-Yo is the cherry. On to air, and we start with a very strong contender with Coulson, the most cost-effective air general in the game, with the ability to be a hybrid naval general should the need ever arise. His lack of carpet bombing is the only issue with him, but being able to spam air and missiles, not to mention the salvo variety, far more often than any other general negates the carpet bombing substantially. A very powerful and tanky air general, because I swear this man's cover triggers more than Maritas for real. Hartmann, the newer pay-to-win helicopter general, and might I say, not exactly a powerful one. The unit in of itself is to blame for some of the shortcomings, but also because Hartmann isn't exactly as powerful as some may think. Inferior victory works well, but not being able to trigger high morale as effectively without inspiration definitely hinders his damage somewhat. His invulnerability to most things at level 5 heli and up is definitely his biggest appeal, but his dodge to crit skill only actually triggers at level 9. It's like the crit overflow perk, if I'm correct. Still, this guy gets better as your helicopters get stronger. I recommend him on Hind for lower levels, and at level 9, you can decide to give him to Apache if you want. But I think there is someone way better than Hartmann on Apache, which is McCampbell. Yes, the segue worked. Okay, so I'm a big McCampbell simp. Let's not get it twisted. I think McCampbell is the second best pay-to-win general of all time. So I might be a bit biased. I used to be a massive McCampbell hater, thinking he was probably the worst, but then helicopters opened my eyes to the power of his ignore defense when using air. He is, by far, one of the strongest air generals to exist, only being outdamaged by Spruance on Akagi or Typhoon. McCampbell's health damage on helicopter is phenomenal, exceeding Hartmann's by a long shot. His airstrikes are also far superior to Hartmann's, and his skills are designed to reduce as much damage as possible from airstrikes when on a helicopter. I, and many others at the time, slept on him so much when he was introduced, so I implore you to try him out and see just how powerful he really is. Hell, his damage still gives Bruins a run for his money on Akagi or Typhoon. Let's not forget, McCampbell can use Topol very well, whereas Spruance's skill doesn't trigger on it. Overall, a very fun and powerful pick if you want to really pump out damage. Just think what you could do at level 10 Apache with that attack again. Richthofen. What a fun general, with some nice defensive utility should someone threaten him. His main perk is only a 50% chance to trigger, which can definitely fuck some people over. But he's made for some dumb fun, and it does work on helicopters, if you were curious. Not the strongest, but certainly not the weakest. He can do many things, but none of them excellently, even fighting boss generals. Auchinleck can do this job way better with his unique perk. Still, not useless. Spots. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I don't like spots at all. Let's start with some pros. Carpet and Air Force Leader are great. Industrial Expert, nice to squeeze out a bit more eco. And that's it for me. I think his Ignore AA is completely overrated, especially as P40 only gets stronger and his explosives offer no synergy with air power. And you are not convincing me to think that he can go already and help siege a city. He's not World Conqueror 3 Hartman. He is not that guy. Ignoring Unit AA also gives such a minute difference, it's not even worth buying him. City AA, a level 5 P40 can remove easily, and even lower level P40 with a bit more luck. A 20% increase in damage using stealth units. Generic stealth units aren't used that often, restricted to only America, France, and the Soviets. B-52, yes, a nice unit, but still, only a 20% increase. If it were 50%, maybe I'd consider it, but 20% is so small. This guy is just not worth it. Hell, I'd say Eichelberger is the better part of this American pack. This guy just doesn't cut it in the late game, no matter how you slice it. I cannot ever name a time where I needed to ignore AA and couldn't do so with P40. He's good early game, but starts falling off mid game. Even when you can deploy B-52 via Enterprise, it's better to use Halsey because he can use it one more time than spots, and you also lose out on spamming other units if you don't use Halsey. Spruance, the final air general on our list, and the strongest Akagi and Typhoon user, thanks to his first skill, and that inspection can be very useful when attacking a boss general you'd rather not get countered by. Sailor is his weakest skill, but can be somewhat useful on Akagi. Powerful, though a little limited, as his air damage on regular airstrikes isn't as strong, but spreading inspection can be very nice. Of course, you have Chenault to do this too. Spruance is a nice to have general, but not as game-changing as Coulson or McCampbell. The only purple naval general is Cunningham, so it'll be a close fight between him and Eisenhower.
Voy a la playa, había subido la marea. Había subido la marea con triple paella.
Cunningham is a powerful support general, extremely powerful, and also has very good solo potential, though having him on Rishu is probably the best pick for me. Even if Eisenhower can reach farther, Cunningham gives more damage. Attack first with Cunningham, then you have your other generals attack, and watch Cunningham join the fight. Simo Haya. I like Simo. I think he's a very powerful support general. Now, I know he's very strong on Hawkeye, I do not deny that, but I also find great use in him being an engineer unit. That deterrence is honestly really powerful, and I definitely slept on it on its utility early on. Now, imagine being on an engineer. You attack, the enemy is now crippled. You dig a tunnel, and you attack something else, spreading the deterrence further. Now your artillery or infantry can attack on that tunnel, then enter it, and attack another unit. The synergy he has with engineers' double attack is wonderful, and I really enjoy crippling my units for my blitzless or guerrilla-less generals. Of course, yes, big number on Hakai is funny, of course. And finally, Waffle. Waffle is a very defensive infantry general, but I think he suffers a lot from his unit more so than his skill set. His skill set is strong. No low morale, built-in samurai, extra tankiness from high-level EF, and 25% counter damage for self and surrounding friendlies. All very good perks. But why infantry? Outside of RPG, this guy cannot counter for shit outside of one range, really dampening his skill as a defensive unit. No reliable healing. I think explosives over organization was a crime for him. A dubious at best counter that only triggers every other turn. It can even be ignored by Artie or a blitz/guerrilla hit. And worst of all, we have a better defensive general in the form of Rudstedt. Rudstedt can force the enemies to attack himself and his surrounding allies, which can really come in handy. Another dock for Waffle is a reliance on EFs. Now, for 2-star events and their Nightmare counterparts, this is easy to ignore, but for regular missions, 1-star events or even 3-star events at times, and their Nightmare counterparts, you're hard-pressed to get an offensive EF infantry, much less an RPG. And would you really spend your money on infantry for Waffle as opposed to a tank for Manstein, Guderian, or whoever, or an artillery unit? The over-reliance on EFs when you can't always ensure he's on one is a big reason why I personally don't like him, which is also why I prefer Inst over Inferior Victory, as Inst can always trigger while Inferior Victory, though the damage is a little bit higher, is regulated to EFs only. I think if he were a tank general, a lot of my issues would be fixed. Even the EF reliance to an extent, as deploying a T-44 isn't too hard, it's pretty cheap. And now onto the rankings. For tankers, from best to worst, we have Munstein, Dobulkin, Osborne, Cheryanovskaya, Abrams, Wittmann, and Arnim. Poor guy. For Arty, Zhukov, Kluga, Yo-Yo, Sokolovsky, Eichelberger, Voronov, and Williams. Air, Coulson, McCampbell, Spruance, Hartmann, Richthofen, and Spatz. Navy. This is really tough. Fuck. I think, Huget, it's Cunningham and Eisenhower. Infantry, Marshall, Simo, and Waffle. And that's it. All the generals are done. All the generals are... Oh, right. Hi, Katukov. You're the best because no one else is like you. Yippee! And that's that. My apologies for this video taking so long. I really don't have an excuse, but I hope it was worth the wait. For future videos, I plan on ranking every trainable skill in World Conquer 4 using a tier list. We love ranking videos. Or maybe every gold and silver in the trainables. Not sure, but definitely in skill tier list. That's all from me. See ya.